Hey, this is Mariela from the Functional Company. So what is nutrition? I think that's another point of confusion because there are so many different suggestions that we get from so many different sources. Our friends are on certain diets. One friend is on one diet, someone's doing vegan, the other one's doing low fat, the other one's doing keto, the other one's doing whole foods. I mean, there's so many different things, dairy-free, gluten-free, all this stuff, So people get confused naturally because, different sources say different things. Don't eat animal, eat more animal, etc., right? So, but what is at the very base, what is nutrition? I think that's just the first thing to kind of clear up, because when we're looking at nutrition, we're actually looking at what does the body need in terms of nutrients in order to maintain, optimize health, right? Our organs require certain things. The heart requires certain nutrients, the liver, the thyroid, the eyes, the skin, etc. So every part of our body, all the cells, they require certain nutrients in order for our body to function properly, in order to repair, to operate, to regenerate, to restore itself, right? So when we look at these things, we're looking at basically, we've got in the macronutrients, we've got, macro means large, so we've got carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, right? So that's what we've got in terms of those macronutrients. Carbohydrates are things like vegetables. Those are the most ideal, that's the most ideal area or source of carbohydrates, right? Because they have fiber and they have minerals. Now there's different kinds of, even within vegetables, some have more carbohydrates, etc. Then we've got really refined ones that are in the cereals and candy and cake and things like that. Those we want to avoid as much as possible. So in the carbohydrate area, we're really looking at as much as possible from vegetables. And then, you can see a little bit of carbohydrates in nuts, in fruits, but you want to eat the whole fruit instead of the fruit without, if you juice the fruit, then you're taking out all of the fiber and you're just consuming a bunch of sugar, and that's going to mess up blood sugar levels, which is another deal, right? So, but what we want to do here is we want to nourish in terms of nutrients. Now we've got protein. Protein is basically like the raw material for the body. So protein is something that we need to consume, and proteins are made up of what's called amino acids. And certain plants have certain profiles or different kinds of amino acids and basically certain kinds of proteins. And then we've got animal protein, which also has different kind of profile of amino acids. And then we've got organ meats, for example. Those will also have different amino acids. And all these things are just like the building blocks, the raw materials for the body. The body will use that to repair itself, right? In so many different ways. We require protein for many different things. And we see that people who are deficient in protein, you'll see them having brittle nails, brittle hair, they wrinkle faster, they age faster, they don't have as much energy, they're not as vibrant, they're missing the raw material in order for the body to continue to repair itself. So that's regarding protein. And in another episode, I'll go more into detail into, what's the deal with organ meats, animal proteins, what are the best sources, etc., and then plant proteins, etc., right? So, but that's just as a general thing. Proteins are the raw materials for the body, and we need that in order to regenerate, continuously be repairing the body. Then we've got fats. Our brain is, 60% fat approximately. All of our nerves are wrapped with something called a myelin sheath. That's also fat. Every cell membrane requires fat. Our heart only runs on fat. Our hormones require, for example, cholesterol in order to be produced. And so there's so many reasons why we need fat for the body to operate properly. So this idea that fat is bad for us is not a complete idea. We really have to understand how the body functions. In our body, it requires fat in order to function. A lot of our body parts are made up of fat and they require fat. So it can't be that bad. We just have to understand the sources of it, which ones we should eat and which ones we shouldn't eat. In a future episode, I'll talk about that. But we've got carbohydrates, proteins, and then fat. And we need some of those in certain quantities and ratios. We'll get into that in the future. And then we also need minerals and vitamins when we're looking at food. So when I say minerals, I'm looking at things like calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, iodine, selenium, etc. Minerals will come from the earth. Basically, the earth has these rocks, and then the rocks get digested by the soil, And then we've got minerals in there. So if the water comes from the earth, it will have some trace minerals in there, and the vegetables come from the earth as well. And so the soil will saturate or will make the minerals go into the vegetables, and we eat those vegetables and we're consuming minerals. Minerals are very important for hydration, for example. In order to really push water into the cells, we need minerals. And that's why in water, like really natural water, is very hydrating for the body because it has minerals, naturally occurring minerals in them. These are what we call electrolytes, right? So then this is something that our body needs. You know, our thyroid requires, for example, a certain amount of iodine in order to function properly and to clean the blood. This is an incredible thing, and if we're too deficient in iodine, which is a mineral, then our thyroid will go off, our body will be sluggish, our heart rate will be different, our temperature will be off. I mean, our body really depends on minerals for many reasons. So it's another thing we want to get from food. And then the other things are things like vitamins, you know, vitamin A, B, C, D, E, etc., right? So we've got all these different vitamins that we need also from foods, and we have to figure out where are we going to get these vitamins from. And as we go along, I'll start to share more about what vitamins are, where you find them in different foods and things like that. But when you're looking at food, before you're confused, like, oh, how many calories does it have? How many carbs does it have? How many, you know, whatever, how much protein does it have, this and that? It's kind of like, first of all, look at it and say, is this food? Is this real food? Does it have nutrients? What my body needs? First, we got to get the nutrients, and then we figure out, okay, now that we have a good source, now we start to see, does it have too many carbohydrates? Can I get nutrients from something that has less carbohydrates? You know, what's the source of fat? Is it a healthy fat, or is the fat already damaged? Is it rancid? Should I be consuming that or not? These are the additional questions, but when you're looking at labels and things like that, and you're actually picking out foods, it gets very confusing when you look at the front of a label and it says like, oh, 0 cholesterol, great for your heart and all this stuff, but you flip it around and then in the back you look at the ingredients and it's got all this like processed junk that you can't even pronounce, and it's got a list of ingredients this large, and you're just like, where are the nutrients, you know? And so you really got to have that mindset when you're looking at nutrition. That's the simplest thing, right? And then we sort of get confused with all of these different suggestions, like, okay, does this food actually have vitamins or minerals, you know, good fats, good protein source, good carbohydrate source, good fiber? Like, what is in there? Once you look at the ingredient list and you've figured out what foods have what, then you know what to look for and how to saturate your body with these nutrients, and your body will do the rest. It's really incredible. If you just feed it what it needs, it will do the rest. So don't get too confused about, you know, all the sales tactics that are out there in terms of everyone's trying to sell us stuff, and that's totally fine, you know, but we've got to know how to filter out all that information and figure out what's the best thing for my body. And the way to figure that out is first to think with, like, does it have nutrients? Does it have minerals? Does it have vitamins? Are they from a whole source? Are they synthetic, right? Because our body will assimilate stuff that's real much more easily than stuff that's synthetic. So you figure out, is it coming from a whole food source? Is it organic? Why organic? Because things that are non-organic usually have a lot of pesticides and herbicides, and it's just a lot of toxicity for the body. So it's like, okay, I'm getting a nutrient with a bunch of toxic stuff, you know? So now we just want to get organic things so that we get a clean nutrient from a whole food source. That's the best deal. So that's why organ meats are fantastic, because you have an organ like liver, it's going to have high amounts of B vitamins, high amount of vitamin A. It's going to have iron. It's just going to be saturated with so many nutrients. It's dense. So if I had a chicken liver or a chicken breast, then absolutely I'll always choose the liver, because it has so many nutrients in there for my, just get way more bang for my buck. And because not everybody's eating liver, it's also cheaper. Isn't that incredible? So you got to want to think with these in terms of nutrients. What has nutrients in it? Is it really nutritious for my body? That's the first question to ask before you get confused in terms of calories and carbs and all these other things that, you know, we're being told to, you know, watch out for and things like that. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. That's all I want to mention this time around. If you're liking this information, make sure to share it with somebody who you think could benefit from it, and I will see you on the flip side.